Hi everybody and welcome to Digital Sculpting. I'm Jen. I wanted to take a look at your assignment for this week, make sure you have a good base, and kind of introduce Maya for those of you that are new to it. I know there's a fairly decent amount of you that are brand new, some of you are very experienced, so no matter where you are, you can always kind of learn little tips and tricks and hopefully we'll get some nice, good-looking models and a good start for this term. Now for this model, depending upon how much experience you have, you can create something fairly simple. You do want to kind of focus on maybe having some sort of an organic part to it, a hard surface part. Think of props in video games. You could do a weapon, you could do a chair, try to get some inspiration and find something that you're going to be excited to work with because we are going to be working with this object the entire term. If you have any questions, always feel free to email me. It doesn't matter what time. I mean, I might not get back to you super early in the morning, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I'd rather us discuss it than, like, oh, I wasn't able to do it because I didn't know. So when in doubt, feel free to always send me an email. All right, so this is Maya, for those of you who are new to it. And if you do prefer 3ds Max, just let me know. I will be doing most of my videos in Maya though. Okay, so we have a 3D space. The main thing that we want to get used to doing is navigating around this space. So if you hold Command or Control, depending if you're Mac or PC, we can left mouse, click and drag. That rotates around our viewport. If we middle mouse, click and drag while holding Control or Command, we get a pan. We can also zoom with a scrolly wheel or your right mouse. Now, when dealing in Maya, it's important to kind of get your setup right from the start. I like to place my left hand on the keys W, E, and R. Then you can use your thumb on the command or the space bar. And then of course you have your right hand on the mouse. So just for an example, I'm going to go to my polygon shelf here and I'm going to click on a sphere to create an object. Okay, so I can navigate around this object and I can see, but the main tools we're going to be using are our Move, Rotate, and Scale tool. Now this is W, E, and R on your keyboard. I know E is rotate, not the R. You'll have to put that up with Autodesk, I'm not sure, but if you want your pinky on Q, that's just the select tool. So, well, we'll get into that in a second. But W is move, E is rotate, R is scale. These are the buttons over here, but when you're working on, creating pieces, you don't want to constantly be clicking back and forth. That's why it's convenient to use the hotkeys. I will be going through a lot of stuff rather quickly, so if you do have any questions or want me to go over something in more detail, feel free to let me know. If I hit the space bar, it's going to show me my 4 viewports, which is basically this button right here. You'll always want to look in multiple views when creating something. You may have it looking, really, really nice and clean in the side view, and then when we go to the front, it could be completely, into shambles. So a lot of times we're going to use this 4 viewport view, and then we'll toggle back and forth for our perspective to kind of take a look at what the shape looks like as a whole. So again, spacebar, and then just put your mouse over a view, and when you hit spacebar again, it will make that one the larger one. All right, and lastly, before we actually get started in modeling, one of the main things you're going to need to know is if you right mouse, click and hold on an object, we can go into object mode, edge mode, vertex, or face. Don't worry about the other ones for right now, but everything that we talked about, move, rotate, and scale, you can do on these kind of subdivision levels. So I can go into face mode, you can hold shift to select multiple faces, and then I can hit W for my move tool and move those out. Or I can go into vertex mode, click and drag around a bunch of them. Just beware, you will get some on the other side. But I could rotate, I could scale. Okay? So again, we've got our WER, and Q again is selection. So let's say if I were going to go into vertex mode, if I selected a few vertices and my gizmo, this three-dimensional thing, if my gizmo is in the way, I could hit Q, and that will allow me to select without the gizmo there. Then you can just click to bring it back. Okay, I know that was super fast, like a 3-minute rundown of the main tools in Maya, but that's where your base is going to be, and that's where we're going to stick with. So now, looking at this week in particular, we want to create a nice clean model that we can eventually bring into Mudbox. We're going to add textures, we're going to do high poly models, all that kind of stuff. So how I would always start is doing a drawing. You want to make sure that you create a front and side view of whatever your object is. Sorry, I had a little bit of a computer issue, but like I was saying, I always like to draw out my objects first, and then bringing them into Photoshop or drawing them in Photoshop, I need to use these guidelines to make sure that my front and side view perfectly line up. The more you do before you actually start modeling to make sure that everything is lined up, the easier modeling will actually be for you. Now I just chose to do a very simple hammer here. You can go a little bit more complicated than this. If the thought of doing this overwhelms you, let me know. But so, got my front, or my front and my side view. And again, perfectly lines up. Okay, so now we can bring these into Maya. So I'm going to hit spacebar so I can see my 4 views, and I've got my front view, says front, and my side view. So I can go into view, which is at the top of each viewport, image plane, import image. I'll navigate, and that was my front view, so I'll find my front, open, and then inside I'll do the same thing, view, image plane, import image, and side. Now this is really kind of cool. It provides it for you, and you can see that it lines up, which is again important for modeling. So I want to really work in my front and side view here. So what I can do is hold my mouse above where the viewports are, and you'll see it turns into a double arrow, and I can click and drag upward. That allows me to really work in these views and, you know, be able to use as much of the space as I can. So generally with, you know, beginning modeling, you can just start out with a cube. We're going to learn in this video how to extrude, insert edge loops, all that kind of stuff. So you just want to start as simply as you can. So I'll just create a cube. You can go right here. Or you can go to create, polygon primitives, cube. And then I can just zoom in here, and I can click and drag and set up heights. You can see that I drew it behind. I can't really see. So in this case, I might want to look at my perspective view here. Yeah, I'm just going to do this again. So we've got our cube. We'll drag and drag. Doesn't have to be perfect to start. Let's go into my 4 views so I can see my front and my side, and I will drag this up again. So now hitting W on my keyboard, I can move this to be in place, and then I can look at my side view and move that to be in place. Now, when you're actually, you know, modeling and looking at this, if I move side to side, that's fine, but if I'm going to move up and down, you can see it adjusts in both views where it is. So just pay attention when you're actually molding and moving things, and then we can, you know, double check each side. So I'm going to hit scale and make this a little bit thicker. Use your drawing. You know, that was the whole point in making the drawing. And then I can actually make this taller too. So we'll just kind of get this. All right. Does not have to be perfect, but we've got our base start here. If you want, before we even move on, I can right mouse click and hold and go into vertex mode. And I can click and drag. You want to make sure that you click and drag because then you're getting both vertices here. If I just click and let go, I'm only getting the one. So I can click these, move it forward, click these, move it back, click these, move it out. And then we can do the same to kind of adjust in here. I'm actually going to bring this down a little bit. Bring these down, over. All right, so we've got a nice base. We can always check our perspective view, see what we've got. Now a few things that I like to do, you can go into your channel box here. You can always hit Control A or Control A to toggle between your attribute editor and your channel box. These are what hold a lot of your information. Maya uses what's called nodes, and basically everything that you do, any extrude, when you create a shape, when you add a texture, it creates a new tab here, and each tab is a node. So when I created my cube, this was my width, height, and depth. I've adjusted it since then, of course, so this changed. But you can always go into here to make any changes. But in our channel box, we have layers. So what I want to do is actually grab my front and side plane here. And I can go to Layers, Create Layer from Selected. So I can double click and call these my image planes. And save. Now this V is visible. So I can easily toggle these on and off to see what my shape is actually looking like. Another thing that's kind of helpful, I can go into shading in whichever viewport I'm in. You will have to do this if you're using multiple viewports in multiple viewports. And then I can click on X-ray. And that makes my shape see-through so that when I'm actually modeling, I can see my image planes a little bit better. All right. So then what I'm going to do is I want to do an extrude. I want to bring this top face up, but keep this edge loop here. So I can right mouse click, go into face mode, grab that top face. I can go to Edit Mesh, Extrude, or you can go to Mesh Tools, Show Modeling Toolkit, and then your modeling toolkit will be over here with your attribute editor and your channel box. And then all of your kind of main options are just buttons here. So I can do an extrude. I want to look at my 4 viewports, and I'm going to move this up. If I want to repeat my last action, I can hit G on the keyboard for great. Then I'm going to move that up to kind of the base here, G, and then I'm going to use my move tool to hit the top. Okay. So now I can, go into my X-ray mode. And I want to start moving vertices. So I can go into vertex mode. Maybe I want to start moving these in. Okay, so it's a little bit of a tedious process. I find it to be a fun one, but you see what you enjoy doing most. Now, I think I need to put in an edge loop kind of in the middle here to get that taper. So what I can do is go into my mesh tools, or again, use your toolkit, whatever's easier for you. I'm a creature of habit. Even though the toolkit is right there, I still tend to come up here. But insert edge loop tool. Now what this does is, like it sounds, adds an edge loop wherever you click. Now this is going to be a perpendicular edge loop to whatever edge you click on. So I'm going to click on this vertical line here, and you can see I have a horizontal green dot. I haven't let go yet, so you can click and drag to say where you want it. I can go into my vertex mode and start bringing these in. Now, I'm not going to go into too much crazy detail here, but you might want to add another edge loop here. I'm going to add another one here. Again, very simple. Insert edge loop tool. I want one here, and one here. Now, don't go crazy with just adding edge loops to add edge loops. Make sure that there's a reason to have them there. Especially with what we're doing in this course, you're going to want to keep your models simple. If it starts to get out of control, you're going to have a harder time creating the shapes that you're looking for, adding texture, UV unwrapping, making up new words. So, you know, and maybe I need another edge loop right above this one so that I can actually go into edge mode if you want to do edges instead of vertices. And I can zoom in here. Can double click to get the edge loop, and then I can scale. Oops, I don't want this one. So I can scale that out, make it fit. Okay. So now, I mean, and again, I would clean things up and pay more attention, but for the sake of this lecture, I'm going to look in my perspective view, and I'm going to grab my front face, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do an extrude. I'll look in my side view here, and I can see that I'm on an angle here, so I hit W to get my move tool so that it comes out straight. And we're going to definitely want to make some adjustments as I go. Now you can see that, especially in my perspective view, if I move this out of the way, I have this up here that tells me how many vertices I have in my scene and how many I have selected. So this row is selected, this one is on the specific object you're dealing with, and this is in your scene. You always want to have this up, so I go to Display, Heads Up Display, and Poly Count. Okay? This is really important because when I'm doing that click and drag over vertices, you can actually see how many you have in your scene, or on your object, what you have selected. Okay? So that's kind of the basics to modeling. You can always delete faces if you want to create some sort of a hole and mold vertices around it. If you need to fill in a face, you can go into edge mode, click one edge, and then click the one opposite it. You always have to have an even number of edges, but then we can do a bridge, and that just fills in our hole. Alright, you'll notice that Maya has a lot of tools, so again, if you have any questions or want to go over any of them in particular, feel free to reach out and let me know. Alright, so again, we want to be as low poly as possible with still achieving what we want. You can always hit 3 on your keyboard, and 3 does a smooth. May not need it, but to check and see how things are going, you could do a smooth. 1 is hard surfaced. 2 is showing you the hard surface bounding box with the smoothed object. And then 4 is wireframe, 5 is shaded, and 6 will show your textures. Alright, well, I wanted to get you started on this. Good luck. I look forward to meeting you all further and seeing what you come up with for this first week. Have a good one.